All right, today we're putting on our detective hats. We're about to launch a full-blown historical investigation, a quest to solve a mystery that spans centuries and continents. And it's a great reminder that sometimes the simplest questions have the most fascinating answers. So let me ask you, what was the world's first university? I bet a few names just popped into your head, right? Maybe Oxford, Cambridge, Bologna? Well, the thing is, the real answer isn't a place, and it's not even a date. It's actually a puzzle. And here's the crucial clue. The entire mystery, our whole investigation, hinges on how we define just one single word: university. Seriously. Define it one way, you land in Europe. Define it another, you're in North Africa. This is where our case gets really interesting. To crack this case, every good detective needs a set of rules, right? So we're going to establish our 4 critical clues. These aren't just things I made up. These are the criteria that historians generally agree on. This checklist will be our guide as we examine the evidence for each of our contenders. Okay, here's our official checklist. Let's run through it. First up, organizational autonomy. Basically, the institution has to govern itself, independent from direct political or religious bosses. Second, curriculum breadth. It can't just be a one-trick pony. It has to offer advanced study in a bunch of different fields. Third, it's got to have degree-granting authority, the power to give out official degrees that are actually recognized by others. And finally, number 4, continuity. It has to have been operating continuously without major interruption from its founding until today. 4 clues. Let's see who measures up. So first, let's travel way back and look at some of the early evidence. We're talking about ancient centers of learning that were, absolute intellectual giants in their day. But the real question is, do they meet our very strict modern criteria for a university? Let's find out. Our first contender is Nalanda Mahavihara in India. We're talking about the 5th century here. And look, this place was just incredible. I want you to picture a gigantic campus home to literally thousands of scholars from all across Asia. They were studying everything: philosophy, medicine, math, astronomy, you name it. It was an absolute powerhouse of learning, no question about it. But we've got to run it through our checklist. So, did it have a broad curriculum? Oh yeah, big checkmark there. But then we hit a few snags, actually 3 big ones. See, because it was a monastic institution, it didn't have that corporate autonomy we talked about. It also didn't really grant degrees in the way we think of them today. And the real tragedy, its history was cut short when it was destroyed in the 12th century. So while it was amazing, it's not our first university. Case closed on Nalanda for now. All right, next stop on our investigation, the Islamic Golden Age. This is where a totally new model for higher learning pops up, and it gives us one of our strongest contenders yet. This is a big one. Now, to really get what made these places tick, you have to understand this concept called a waqf. It was a truly brilliant idea, a kind of charitable endowment under Islamic law. It gave these schools a steady, reliable source of income, which made them incredibly stable. And that stability gave them a level of independence that was absolutely critical for surviving for centuries. And that brings us to our next major suspect, Al-Qarawiyyin. Get this. It was founded way back in 859 CE. That's more than 200 years before the University of Bologna even gets started. And fun fact, it was founded by a woman, Fatima al-Fihari. It began as a mosque and a place for study, but it just exploded, quickly growing into a major center for advanced learning. So, what about our degree-granting clue? Does it check that box? Well, Al-Qarawiyyin issued something called an ijaza. And this wasn't just a pat on the back. It was a formal certificate, a license to teach that was recognized all across the Islamic world. So for all intents and purposes, yeah, it functioned just like a formal academic degree. That's a huge piece of evidence for our case. And what about continuity? Well, on this point, the evidence is pretty much a slam dunk. Guinness World Records, yeah, that Guinness, officially calls it the oldest continuously operating educational institution on the planet. We're talking more than 1,100 years, nonstop. Okay, let's check the report. Broad curriculum? Check. Continuity and longevity? Big check. Degree-granting authority? Yep, check. So it checks 3 of our 4 boxes, but it stumbles on that last one, organizational autonomy. It wasn't a self-governing corporation in that very specific legal European sense of the word. So it's an incredibly strong case, but that one missing clue means our investigation isn't over. We have to check out our next suspect. Okay, our investigation now jumps over to Europe, to Italy. And our next contender, the University of Bologna, is a whole different animal. You see, Bologna didn't just teach subjects, it basically invented the legal DNA of the modern university as we know it today. The key to understanding Bologna is one word: universitas. Now, you might think that means universal knowledge or something grand like that, but you'd be wrong. Back then, in medieval Latin, it just meant a corporation or a guild. And here's the kicker. At Bologna, it was a guild of students. This right here is the radical, revolutionary idea that forms the core of Bologna's claim. So, around 1088, you have this situation in Bologna. A lot of the students were foreigners, which meant they had basically zero legal rights in the city. So what did they do? They banded together. They formed a union, a corporation, and they essentially staged a takeover of their own education. I'm serious. They started hiring their own professors, they set the curriculum, they set the fees, they fought tooth and nail for legal independence from the city and the church. And that model, that became the blueprint for everything that followed. Bologna also came up with this other game-changing idea, the jus ubique docendi. It's Latin for the right to teach anywhere. Think of it like this. A degree from Bologna became an internationally recognized passport for a scholar. It meant you were certified, legit, and could go teach pretty much anywhere in the Christian world. This was a foundational concept that really cemented the power of a university degree. So what happens when we run Bologna through our investigators' checklist? Let's see. Broad curriculum? Check. Continuous operation? Yep, check. Standardized degrees recognized everywhere? Check. And the big one, that legally recognized corporate autonomy? Check. We have a perfect score. By our strict 4-point definition, Bologna is the first institution to check every single box. So where does that leave us? Our investigation has narrowed it down to two prime suspects, Al-Qarawiyyin and Bologna. Both have incredibly powerful claims to the title. It's time to bring them into the room together and lay out the final verdict. Just looking at this timeline really puts everything into perspective, doesn't it? You see these incredibly deep roots of higher learning starting with Nalanda, then the pioneering foundation of Al-Qarawiyyin, followed by this huge structural innovation from Bologna and later Paris. It's been one heck of a journey through history. And this is what the final verdict boils down to. It's a question of priority. Do we care more about the function or the form? If you prioritize function, the place that acted like a university first, then the title goes to Al-Qarawiyyin. But if you prioritize the institutional form, the place that created the specific legal structure we now call the university, then the title has to go to Bologna. You can see the problem, right? Both claims are totally legitimate. So, you know what? The most accurate answer here isn't to pick a winner. It's to give credit where credit is due, to both. The conclusion is that Al-Qarawiyyin is, without a doubt, the world's oldest continuously operating center of higher learning. Full stop. And Bologna is the institution that invented the corporate blueprint for the modern university that would eventually spread across the globe. So what have we really learned from this investigation? Well, for one, that history is messy. The first of anything almost always comes down to how you define your terms. We've also seen that the university isn't a purely European invention. It has deep roots in multiple civilizations. And maybe most importantly, that fight for academic freedom and autonomy, that's a battle that's been going on for over 900 years. And all of this leaves us with one final and I think really critical question for today. Those first students at Bologna, they fought like crazy for their independence. So now, in our modern age, with universities facing all sorts of pressure from politics and corporations, you have to wonder, is that hard-won independence, the very thing that defined the first university, now at risk? Something to think about. Thanks for joining our investigation.